It's a buzzword now. And it's become very vague. And I think that's just because there's so many different types of content out there. Thought leadership pieces, but then there's also memes, there are videos, there's written content, there's visual content. And people really feel compelled, I think, at a visceral level to create, just because everyone else is creating. So this sort of compulsion and this anxiety really leads to a thoughtless creation. And just the proliferation of really low quality slipshod work that just doesn't really yield any type of reward or contribute meaningfully to a dialogue.
Lawsome, the podcast for law firms. Powered by Consultwebs.
Welcome back to Lawsome, the only podcast for lawyers that bring a bottle of wine to your last party, unlike some of those other podcasts. We're here to inform, educate, and entertain the legal community on the latest in legal marketing and law firm development. I am Jake Sanders. He's Paul Julius. Paul, how you doing?
I'm great.
You're not a Wiccan. Are you a Wiccan?
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
I like a good
what
Yule
I can
log.
say, look, here's what happened, all right? Every time we went down to the bowling alley, they were like, it's league night. You can't play unless you got a team. So I got a bunch of these people together. I was like, look, we all want to bowl. Let's do it. And they were all like, hey, you know what? We kind of hang out in the woods. We should all hang out in the woods together. So we started doing that. And then like someone brought some crystals. And next thing you know, like rune stones were in there and like the whole full moon thing. So, you know, it wasn't like intentional.
It never is.
And we're actually a pretty good bowling team. We're second in the league now. So
that's all that matters, man.
I'm just saying.
Just pick up the spare and just move on. Before we hit the yurt, tell people what's on this show.
On this show, we're talking about content marketing, what it is and why you should do it. First, with articles from Davis Legal Media and Inc.com. And then we get to talk in depth about content marketing with attorney and founder of Davis Legal Media, Alex Davis. And then we build out linkable assets with our guest with 5 questions we ask everyone.
Pull up a plate. It's the Hot Takes Buffet.
The link today is from davislegalmedia.com. It's written by Alex Davis. It's entitled, Yes, Blogging is Worth Your Time. Here's why. Well, she starts it really interestingly. I'm just going to read her words and then we'll provide our hot takes. Recently, I was listening to a podcast interview with a well-known blogger. She said she's often asked whether blogging is worthwhile in an age where the internet is absolutely teeming with blogs. The ones that have the best SEO and largest followings allegedly are the ones that were launched back in 2010. Her opinion on the issue was don't even bother. If you didn't get in on the ground floor in 2010, you're fighting an uphill battle. And she says you're better off putting all your content on Instagram. So you could imagine that.
Sorry.
You could imagine that Alex Davis is not having this. She says, I vehemently disagree. She gives 3 reasons why. It's the reasons we all know with content. Owned media and shared media. There's a big difference in between these two things. You can post things on Facebook. You can be a thought leader on LinkedIn, but did it go back to a site that you own? If it doesn't, then you're building your house on rented land. Number 2, the blogging market is saturated, but it's never wanting for good quality content. A lot of that content out there ain't good. And the number 3 reason that you should blog is that good things grow only with time. This is interesting because I found this link and you, at the same time, posted that Inc.com link.
Yeah.
Which it seems like these 2 things agree.
It's almost the Inc. article. We could talk about that one in a second because that really builds on number 3, what she's talking about. Mm-hmm. But I did want to. So, what do you think about this? What struck you out of Alex's article?
I love that she expresses this, the difference in between owned and shared. Everyone thinks the internet's the internet. I think it's really important for people to establish some base for their operations. Content. You have a newsletter, you have a website, you have this place where everything points back to. The great story that Magnus told us about Jamie Casino, Super Bowl lawyer, avenges the death of his brother. Amazing commercial. All of that wasn't pointed to his site. All traffic was directed to the YouTube link. So he missed out on an amazing opportunity to build up his own media, presence. And that was failed. And it's an issue of linking. And then it's also a thing like, well, just share it. Just share. Rather than own, create, and build. I think that's the one thing that sticks out here. And I think it's amazing. And if people could get that together, they would see the value of content.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. I think that's a great point. And I think also too, that leads into reason number 2, which was what struck me out of this article. Yeah. The blogging market is saturated. But using your example of kind of owning your content and what happened with Jamie Casino and stuff like that, if you make relevant stuff, I think a lot of what's happening is that the blogging quote market or whatever that might be, search results, people answering questions, I don't know.
Right.
But whatever that is, a lot of it is just content farms. It's just people pumping out, third-rate stuff, keyword stuffed junk, trying to either build up their website, rank for some kind of long tail search. I think that it's not saturated if you're coming at it from the perspective of making useful, authoritative, quality content.
Yeah,
that's not saturated at all.
Not at all.
To me, that's what stuck out. I really liked that point.
And that's the big takeaway from the interview too, is that it starts with your audience. Who do you want to speak to? You can speak. Paul, to that point, could someone just pay a content farm and not even think about it? I mean, there are different tiers. Maybe you can. Is that okay? I mean, it's not distinct. It's not unique.
It happens. I don't know that that's necessarily a content strategy, though. When I think like a good content marketing strategy, later in the interview we talk about HubSpot. It's more aligned with inbound. So you're really trying to like we talk about, like you just mentioned, is you develop this audience or audiences. Maybe in your particular law firm, you have family law, trust and estates, maybe some injury litigation. I don't know, but each one of these things is going to have kind of a different set of needs and questions that you need to establish yourself as the go-to person. And once you do that, then people will come to you. So rather than chasing clients will be coming to you. To me, that's what that's all about. Could you just pump out a content farm for that? I mean, hire a content farm to just pump stuff out? I doubt it. I mean, I not effectively. Could you use it? I mean, if you want to get into, SEO and be like, well, our tier 2 links have content pointing to our, B sites, which links to our money site, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it happens a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would call that a content strategy as much as I would just call it like SEO strategy, and maybe not even like good SEO strategy.
Well, it's busy. It's busy work, essentially.
Yeah.
And
you're flooding it. And she talks about that too. You bring it up with her later about just flooding the market and flooding these different platforms with just whatever.
Yeah. And think about the passing fancies of social media. Like, it's a swipe. It's the news feeds eat everything. If your main goal was to just go to social media, you're off. You're off the marketing boat. I wish you well. I want you to get some food. I want you to get some clothes, get a shave, and get out of here, because you can do that, but it has to be connected to a strategy. It has to be a part of a plan. You have to have a plan, kids. And Alex is really, I think she's been writing long enough that she understands if you don't align the audience and the targets and then the understanding of the shareholders, your content, no matter how great you think it is, they're going to shut you down. You know, you got to talk to the people who are paying for it, and then they have to see the value. Thought leadership is a great way to get them involved because you can position them. You can figure out where you are. And another great thing about this content is that there is no difference in between a lawyer practicing PI and another lawyer practicing PI. It's how do I tell the difference in between you? This is where it comes in. Maybe if you were the Instagram lawyer, oh, this lawyer posts all their blogs on Instagram. Maybe that's the thing that grabs them. But what you can do when you own the media experience, you can find out who's coming to your website, gain insight on your audiences, figure out what's working, what isn't, what drives engagement, what doesn't, and then create that stuff with the data in mind, where you can't get that in any other shared platform. I mean, you could pay for it, but this is your chance to use content. And she's speaking specifically about blogs, but she goes into it later. Video series, podcasts like this. Content marketing can work, but it has to be a part of a strategy, and you have to kind of have that. The ROI has to sort of be explained and asked and answered, and then you sort of set it and forget it, because I mean you're not going to get 7 clients from a blog post.
I mean, not in a day.
Sorry.
I mean, depending on what it is, but I think that actually leads into that Inc. article, you know, which is called "Why Content Marketing is the Best Long-Term Marketing Strategy," and that's exactly it. It's long term, but I think the kind of bridge for me between these two pieces is what they say in Inc. here is every piece you write is permanent real estate, and I think, kind of based on what we just said and what we talked to Alex about later, that's both a positive thing and a warning. Because, you know, like you said with the Jamie Casino thing, you have to be intentional. This has to be thought out. If you're just wailing away, writing about whatever, hiring people to just, you know, get some keyword stuff, you know,
here's my thing.
Thinly spun content, then whatever.
But is that better than not doing anything? Like, I don't want to dog people who are choosing to automate this stuff. That's what you want to do. That's fine. It's not a problem. But you don't need bespoke content. Or you do. And that's the point, is you're not distinct.
It's your name.
Right.
It's your name on it. It's your brand. You know, I mean, I guess if you're, again, talking about this, you know, more SEO strategy where you're, you know, doing WordPress blogs and blogger stuff like that.
Exactly.
To link back to something, to link back to something else.
Right.
I guess for me personally, I don't like to dump out things that, you know, just makes the internet a worse place. And I think bad content does that. So
I agree.
I don't want to do that. And your law firm, you know, part of branding, part of this, part of developing a voice, you know, somewhere, somebody could find something that, you know, whatever, you hired somebody to, you know, poorly write for you because they did it for half a cent a word or something. And that's going to reflect on you. And that's the kind of stuff where you might, you know, it's out there, it's floating around. You can't control it, you know?
I hear what you're saying. And that's why that permanent real estate, owned media experiences, building up an audience, building up affinity and trust. The only way to do that is good quality content that speaks directly to your target audience. The only way you can get that is by working with someone like Alex, or developing the insights and data, asking your clients, figuring out where they spend time. You know, that is the magic here for content. And those are some of the tricks that Alex shares with us. And we're going to jump into the hat right now.
Let's go.
Any lawyer looking to grow their business online can generate more leads from their website by hiring Consultwebs. After working with lawyers exclusively since 1999, we've tested thousands of web designs and marketing strategies, so we know what flips and what flops. For more information, visit www.consultwebs.com today.
And now, a lawsome interview.
Alex Davis is an attorney and the founder of Davis Legal Media, content marketing agency crafting and delivering attorney-written thought leadership pieces in the form of client-facing blog posts, website content, and bylined articles. Alex has a bachelor's in English, got her JD from the Campbell School of Law. Her writing has been featured in the National Jurist, ABA Journal, Above the Law, and now she makes a special appearance on the Lawson podcast. Alex, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So explain Davis Legal Media. What's the elevator pitch and how are you helping lawyers through content market their firms?
So DLM is a company that creates evergreen content in ghostwritten, bylined articles for lawyers and firms who are seeking to gain exposure and really create awareness. So fundamentally, we help lawyers with positioning. We help them position themselves as authorities in their practice areas, whether to clients and prospective clients, or to their colleagues through high-quality bylined thought pieces in trade journals. So we do this through a process that really involves getting to know the client's unique position in the market, getting to know the client's audience, and then devising a strategic content calendar that speaks directly to the people they're trying to reach.
Nice. Well, obviously. Well, obviously, it's just that, isn't it? So when you're talking about content, it's up to you to come up with these things. Are you interested in specific practice areas, or is there a type of law you work with, or is it all types?
It is all types. We range from the small shop that generalizes to firms that have more niche practice areas. So we have a couple interesting projects going on right now. We work very closely with our clients to make sure that we have a good grasp on their subject matter before delivering written product. So it's very collaborative. It's a lot of fun.
So for legal marketers out there creating content, they know it's good for the client. They put their soul into it, but the client doesn't like it, doesn't see the value, hates your style. And all of a sudden, like the marketer's ego is attached to the final product. How do you handle this, like with your own creations?
We as lawyers, I like to pretend I'm immune from the ego issues that often befall attorneys, but I understand, I get it. As an attorney myself, but in all seriousness, what we do is we try to avoid this by doing a lot of legwork up front. We really try not to be the sort of mill just churning out content, and we try to really have in-depth conversations with our clients to really get to know their voice, to get to know their style, to know what they want. So hopefully we can bypass a lot of these sort of back-end issues of, oh man, I hate this is garbage. I like to say we don't produce garbage, but they may think it is if it's not consistent with their goals. So we do the legwork, we get to know them, we have a call at the beginning of each month to discuss their expectations for that month. And, proud to say we haven't, really encountered that issue of, oh man, this is terrible, we can't publish this, because we do that sort of strategy work on the front end.
Perfect. It's so smart. And it's one of those things that is failing here, because content is like this catch-all term. And
it is.
It just seems like it's writing good, and people can write and I can write. And why do I need to pay someone to do all this? Sure. And it's interesting because that strategy is really the money part of it. But why do you think people cheap out around content creation, and how do you help clients see the value?
Yeah, so people love content and they love to hate content. And I think that's really how I see it. And I think the reason it gets such a bad rap is that it's a buzzword now, and it's become very vague. And I think that's just because there's so many different types of content out there. I mean, there's, thought leadership pieces, but then there's also memes, there are videos, there's written content, there's visual content, and people really feel compelled, I think, at a visceral level to create just because everyone else is creating. So this sort of compulsion and this anxiety really leads to a thoughtless creation and just the proliferation of really low quality slipshod work that just doesn't really yield any type of reward or contribute meaningfully to a dialogue. So think of it as, there's hundreds of people, throngs of people at a rally, and everybody's yelling and waving signs, and everyone's voices blend into each other. So instead of being the one lone person who prepares some statements and, approaches the podium and calms the masses and says, here, let's how we think about this, you just join the fray and start shouting too. That's often what happens with content. So I think that's part of why it's devalued, because so many people are doing it wrong. They feel like they have to be everywhere, right? So they just pump out shoddy work on every outlet imaginable, but also they're just blasting out quantities, just mass quantities of low quality work that's adding to the noise. So I think the value of content comes in when you sort of zoom out, step out of the masses and say, I'm going to take the time to get to know my goals for why I'm even creating this content. Who am I creating it for? Who is the end user? And how can I make this quality? It's like you said, not just about writing good. Everyone thinks they can write good, you know.
Right.
It's about, especially lawyers, we all, I mean, we write
Professional
so much,
writers. I mean, come on. Of course you can write good.
exactly.
Yeah.
We do, but writing a brief is so different from marketing writing. It's so different from that. One of my colleagues says polished informality. That's free of legalese. That's conversational, but polished. It's hard. It's harder than people think to write that way. So when you're writing content yourself, but it sounds like you're in brief mode and sounds archaic, you're not getting anywhere. But also if you're hiring someone to just pump stuff out, people can tell when it's low quality. People can tell when it was mass produced and when the person writing just really doesn't know anything about the subject matter. So good content really gives you an opportunity to contribute meaningfully to a dialogue. When you just take the time to make it really polished, really good, and speak to who you're trying to reach instead of just shouting along with everyone else online.
Something we see a lot is imitation. So
Sure.
I'd like to see if you could give us a little, like maybe some tips or something when you're talking about being authentic and developing a voice. So many times it's just this lawyer's website looks like this lawyer's website. It
Oh,
all
yeah.
says, we have
Trusted.
700 years combined experience, whatever.
Yeah.
How can you use content to really differentiate yourself? And I mean, experience matters, authenticity matters, and people do want to see that. But what's a way to make that stand out or make it more personal than just your standard, we will fight for you, lawyer copy that we see everywhere?
Great question.
That's where the value of a story comes in. I know you guys have had a multitude of episodes on the value of storytelling, but it stands the test of time. I mean, a story is really a mooring that it anchors you to your brand. It anchors you to, really just who you are, your values. It helps you connect emotionally. Think of two lawyers with identical service offerings. The one who tells the compelling story about, who he is, who she is, why you do what you do, who you are, is that will stand out much more than the typical, we fight for you, 700 years of combined experience, yada, yada, yada. Here's a laundry list of all the committees that I've ever been on, the meetings I've ever attended, the things I've ever published, right? So it helps you by, differentiating from the boring prose. It also helps you by engaging. So think about our role as lawyers. We really occupy this uniquely intimate space in our clients' lives. So what's going to invite sort of a mirrored, shared intimacy is you getting online and, of course, within reason, sharing a little bit about who you are, which will then in turn invite them to show who they are, instead of them just clicking away from your site and then clicking to the next site and saying, oh, what the heck, I'll just go with this one. Let me type into the chat bot and respond. This is just what I'm going to go with. So it's the value of storytelling that gives you that human element.
Yeah. And being distinct in the marketplace. Well, here's my question too.
Sure.
Content. Great. Let's do it. I'm going to pay you. And then you get this strategically aligned with business goals. And then you say, this is where we're going to be. Can you point to a blog post or content that's created revenue? Like a lot of people are just obsessed with ROI. And really what you're saying is this why. Why are you doing this?
Sure.
Because if you don't have that, you're going to be a little bit, maybe you're going to be sad with your ROI. So speak to this. And because I know blog posts turn people into clients. You could convert folks through content. Can you point to a specific example when you've done this and then speak to the ROI of content?
Absolutely. It sounds very woo woo, right? It's,
Oh, yeah.
recognition, exposure, absolutely. And we've got jobs to do. We've got clients to serve. I mean, it's, I don't have time to sit around and be mamby-pamby and just turn stuff out because people said, some woman somewhere said, oh, it's good for your brand recognition. I get it totally.
Right. Totally.
But, you can tie it to dollars and you should. I had an experience when I was still in practice that we put out a blog post about collecting post-judgment collections. We ended up attracting 3 out-of-state prospective clients who were interested in collecting on a foreign judgment that they'd gotten in North Carolina, in varying dollar amounts. But they had seen the blog post by doing a Google search on the topic and came to us because they said, hey, I couldn't find anything that just spelled out the process.
Wow.
And it was clean, it was well written, it was step by step. So, hey, are you interested in doing this for us? I actually left the firm shortly after that, so I cannot tell you if it actually generated revenue, but it did generate leads. So let me talk a little bit about how to tie these things to dollars.
Yes.
So keep a record of clients who came to you by way of your content. So, make sure you ask them, how'd you find me? Keep track of business opportunities, referrals, etc., with those who would not have connected with you but for your online presence. So make sure you keep a record. I do that in my own business. We keep track of who came to us through, what avenues led them to us. I will say that my 3 highest paying clients came to us because they saw our content online. So,
Wow.
We're talking substantial amounts, probably 40 to 50% of our monthly revenue, because they said, hey, I saw something you wrote in X publication. Can you tell me a little about your business?
Wow.
I actually saw recently, just scrolling online, a study from HubSpot that about half of buyers actually viewed 3 to 5 pieces of content before entertaining a sales discussion. So, and I saw another study, and unfortunately, I cannot remember the source of that one, but it said that thought leadership content was the deciding purchase factor for about half of all decision makers. So that's a significant amount. So people do look at this, and it does matter. So when it comes to ROI, yes, tie it to the numbers, keep track of it, but also, know that this is something that matters, even if there doesn't seem to be an immediate snap reward response.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it doesn't even seem like a really fascinating topic, collecting on judgments. You're like,
Right.
oh, it's so dry. But it's the
It is.
exact thing that 3 potential clients were looking for. That's amazing.
Exactly.
Oh, that's huge.
Oh yeah.
From different states.
Well, and to add on to that, to what you were talking about HubSpot, something in a related thing I saw that said the higher the dollar amount or the level of interaction that this particular transaction was going to require or involved, the more trust you had to build, right? So,
Right.
Sure.
if you're selling, wallets or iPhone covers or something like that, you don't need to put out 30 high quality pieces. But if you're talking about, being like a trust and estate attorney or family law lawyer, something like that, you really do need to develop that and build that and have those touch points that are going to lead to it. So I think, I would
Great
almost say
point.
those HubSpot things were, at least in my experience, maybe a little conservative. I mean, I think the more relevant and content that can connect with people specifically is incredibly valuable.
Absolutely, especially when there's no triggering factor,
Yeah.
for getting in touch with
Right.
an attorney. It's there's not a triggering factor, when you're in your, early 30s to say, hey, I really need to get my estate plan in place. So
Yeah, right.
I think it's Seth Godin who says, it's the drip, 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 that matters for something like that. Just keep showing up saying, hey, remember, this is something you really ought to think about.
Right.
Well, absolutely. And you got to think about those searches too. I mean, someone like you say, someone in their 30s, this probably isn't going to be typing into a search bar, how do I plan my, living will, estate, blah, blah, blah. But they might be like, what happens to my 401k when I die?
Interesting.
Or if there's an
Exactly.
accident. So if you can answer that kind of stuff, I mean, it's tremendous. And we've seen this with our clients. It's incredible.
Likewise. And that's another reason just to ditch the legalese, because like you said, people think about what they're typing into that search bar. It's not the way that you as a lawyer would define the topics or the issues. So that's why it's so important to know what What do they want to know? It helps to keep a bank of frequently asked questions that clients have and sort of mirror that language in your content. Because otherwise, if you're just blah, 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 legalese, estate plan, etc., you may not actually capture what people are looking for.
Bingo. Absolutely. So we've been hitting a lot of different things here. You should do this, touch points, stuff like that. But let's get this down to something that our listeners could like take away and start doing like right now. So if you had like one piece of advice to give our listeners about marketing their firm, like using content or blogs, what would that be?
Always, always, always prioritize quality over quantity. You don't have to be everywhere. And in fact, you can't be everywhere and also have a useful and helpful and meaningful and robust dialogue in every place. So if you have a budget of time, if you're doing this yourself, or dollars if you're outsourcing, use it to put 120% into the outlet you choose. If you say, hey, I've got this great blog on my firm's website, let me pour into that, not let me slap down a half-assed, half-baked blog, every day or every week. And also blast it out on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and Facebook. Oh, and I really need to do X, Y, and Z as well. Right. Instead, say, let's just make this blog as good as we can, and market it, pick one avenue, one channel that's been extremely effective. Or say, hey, I've gotten a lot of traction placing thought leadership pieces in trade journals. Let me just lean into that instead of feeling like, oh, I really need to master Twitter, when frankly, my prospective clients don't even hang out on Twitter. So why am I doing that? Just because the ambiguous they tell me I need to do that. Quality over quantity, pick one, stick with it, do it well. That's the one takeaway I would give anybody who's listening.
I love it. They are very chatty, aren't they?
They are. They are.
You have given us so much, and I'm assuming that there's lawyers listening to this show that want to get in connection with you, want to learn more about what you guys are doing over at Davis Legal. How can they find you, Alex, on the internet?
Absolutely. I'd love to connect with anyone listening. The easiest place is the website, davislegalmedia.com. We are also on Facebook and Twitter at Davis Legal Media, and they can connect with me personally on LinkedIn at Alexandra Davis.
5 questions we ask everyone.
What was the last book you read?
Last book I read was Built to Sell, and it was a game changer.
Very good.
Number 2, what is your favorite place?
Charleston.
All right. Number 3, what sites, blogs, newsletters, or podcasts do you regularly check in with?
You mean aside from the Lawson podcast, of course.
Naturally. Thank you.
It's implied.
I'm not sucking up at all here, guys. I love how I built this. As a business owner myself, I like to nerd out to that. Blogs, actually, shameless plug, I do in my other life write for a blog called Verily Magazine. It is a magazine for millennial women, and I consult that often for issues of life and culture.
Nice.
Cool.
Okay, number 4. If you were stranded on a desert island and could only pick one condiment to take with you, what would it be?
Spicy mustard.
Like a French mustard. Is that what you're saying?
Nice.
Yeah, not the yellow. The French is yellow mustard, but the spicy mustard that. Well,
like Grey Poupon, like actual French.
Yeah. Oh, I do like the Grey Poupon, but you have to have water. So I guess if I didn't have water with me, that would not be a good choice.
Fair.
Very comprehensive.
Last one. After a long day or a long week at work, how do you relax and unwind?
Going out to dinner with my husband and my son, or actually maybe without my son. He's 4 months old. He's not very relaxing. So let me revise that. Leave him with a babysitter. Go out to dinner with my husband. Sit outside on an outdoor patio and just kick back.
For show notes, links, and info, go to thelawsonpodcast.com or follow us on Twitter or Facebook. Be sure to leave us a review and rating in iTunes or wherever you find the you listen to. Until next week, stay Lawson.